Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Coast-to-Coast Combat Hour. I'm your host, Matthew Hawkins. As always, joined by my co-host, Ed Carbajal, and on a weekly basis, we plan to bring you the biggest news and interviews in the world of combat sports. Ed, how was your Thanksgiving?
Good. I'm glad we're back with our guest Justin Wetzell. Justin, I did the live results for your fight when it was on what was that 2 3 weeks ago?
Yeah. 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, and I was just saying to Matt, like I felt bad that I didn't add the highlight of of the 27-second fight. I mean, I wanted to rewatch it before we started, but anyway, thanks for coming on. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, this week we're joined by Justin Wetzell, 10-0 amateur, 5-1 pro, coming off a 27-second KO win at LFA on November 22nd. Justin, just to get the fans to know you a little bit, what got you into fighting?
Oh man, it's probably we probably need a half hour longer than a half hour to get into that. But just kind of as a young kid, I wrestled throughout high school. At some point in between, I got I just really how to describe it? Just seeing like other wrestlers like Matt Hughes come. I was an Illinois wrestler, so like seeing like other wrestlers like Matt Hughes, who wrestled out of Hillsboro, was a two-time Illinois state champ. Um, just really, I was always into, I don't know, watching it, but then I got in like a similar situation where I was in like a fight with a friend or whatever. We were wearing gloves and used like wrestling and just I don't know, always being around it, watching it, just kind of always. I'm not painting a good picture here, but
Well, that kind of
what's that?
that kind of leads into where I was kind of going. I was kind of curious. You grew up in Illinois, right outside of like Iowa, kind of in the
Yeah.
Quad City area, correct? So you mentioned Matt Hughes. You're what? Are you 27 or 28? I've seen mixed.
27. I'm 28 in January.
Okay, well, happy early birthday. But so being from the Quad City areas, were guys like Pat Militech, you mentioned Matt Hughes, Jeremy Horn, Robbie Lawler, were those people recognizable to you growing up? I know you just mentioned Matt Hughes. Obviously, he was the big name out of that group, probably more in your age range. But were those guys prominent in that area? Obviously, me being in Southern California, like Tito Ortiz, Chuck Liddell were names for the MMA fans. Was that how it was for you in the Midwest?
Yeah, it was more so like probably my early like middle school, like early high school days when those guys were coming up. Like, you'd go to the state wrestling championships and you'd see like highlights of stuff like that on the big screen. And also where I was from in Sterling, Militich was about 50 minutes away, 55 minutes away. I eventually started training there at some point in my career. That was long before like the Matt Hughes era and like Jeremy Horn, Tim Sylvia. They would show up occasionally, help like coach and give insight. But yeah, like knowing that that was so close and so near is kind of something that I knew in order to get up to like a higher level as a young amateur, I would eventually have to like train with bigger people from bigger gyms like that. And ultimately kind of what led me out here to Denver.
So, you actually talking about how you wound up out in Denver. One of the things I noticed, so I was looking at your amateur record, looking at your pro record, with the finish you got at LFA, and your fight just before that, you got a TKO. So, did you change? You seemed like you were really into obviously imposing your wrestling on your opponents. What did you change about your training that turned you into a I mean, I know it's two in a row, and I don't want to jinx anything for you, but you know what I mean. What did you change to evolve your training to be a better striking? Did it just come natural to you?
That's a great question, man. So like I kind of my first four fights were all decisions. So it's four fights in. I already got an hour of freaking cage time. Um, I kind of I would say implemented the system that is like our team. Before, I would just kind of use my wrestling to like hold people down, and my mentality almost would be just I keep them down, don't get submitted. I'm gonna win the round, do it again, win the round, ultimately win the fight. But using that energy that I would use to hold someone down to actually that kind of flow and to use ground and pound, which is going to lead towards a finish, which is going to make them tired in itself getting beat on. If someone's on their back just getting held down, I mean, it sucks and it can be grueling, but it doesn't hurt them. It doesn't really take them out of the fight other than being tired. And as far as the stand-up, yeah, I got to really credit that to high altitude martial arts here in Aurora, and Corey Sanhagen, Miguel Perez, to drop a few names, really, really helped me a lot with understanding the whole universe of striking. Really opened my eyes to like the levels of the game, man. Like learning how to have your feet underneath you when you move, switching stances. Switching stances is going to be the biggest thing, I think, in the coming decade with MMA, as far as just the evolution. Because now that I see fighters that only use they only fight southpaw, they only fight orthodox. Their straight can only come from one side. Their lead hook is only going to come from one side. As if you're switching stances, it just opens a whole new realm. So Corey Sanhagen's been a big factor in my development, I think.
That's pretty cool. So the one thing I wanted to ask you, obviously, I mean, you were ecstatic after the win, but it was kind of like I was just saying to Matt before we started recording and brought you on. For you, I mean, it was your LFA debut. It was LFA's only second event that they aired on Fight Pass. But that was like your promotional debut with them. So was there any, obviously you've been fighting for a while, but was there any additional nerves or jitters leading up to the fight? You seemed pretty calm walking in, and obviously you exploded when you won, but can you just elaborate on how you felt like going in with the changes going on at LFA?
Yeah, I was excited, but I wasn't anxious. I wasn't, nervous, thinking I have to do well. I knew I had to do well and perform, and this is my chance to show. I was aware of all that mindfully, but I was not like over anxious. I wasn't jittery. With that being said, though, maybe I was just overexcited. I didn't sleep for about 2 days before the fight. I laid in bed like 10 p.m. to like 6, 7 a.m. just like sleep, maybe for like close my eyes for an hour, like just be awake, and it was like that for about 2.5 days. But I mean, just I don't know, excited, I guess. But no, I wasn't. I was just excited, man. I knew it was my chance to like showcase literally to the world now with it being on Fight Pass. Whereas before, when it was on Access TV, you could watch it, but if you missed it, like, good luck trying to find that unless they published it on YouTube. But now with it being on Fight Pass, it's archived. You can go back. I mean, I could go back and watch it right now if I wanted on my phone.
Yeah.
Now the original fight was postponed, correct? When it was dropped from Access.
Yeah, it was. I found out in August I was fighting October 4th, and I was actually fighting a different opponent. And you find out a week and a half before, or a week maybe less before the event gets canceled. But I stayed ready and like kind of kept my weight managed, and told LFA that I was going to be ready for when they rescheduled it, and just send me the contract when you're ready.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. So you stayed in shape. Did they give you, how much of a heads up did you have for the November 22nd bout?
About 3.5 weeks, I think. That sounds about right. Under a month, but it was October 4th to move to November 22nd. That's not too long of a delay.
How much weight do you generally have to cut? What kind of shape do you have to stay in to make weight?
So when I'm healthy, I'm running around like 150, 149. That's when I'm like watching what I'm eating, staying consistent. When I'm liberal with my diet and like kind of, I eat late at night sometimes or whatever, that it can get up to like 155, between 155, 160. Now, if I'm just, post-fight obese, that's a whole different story in itself. But so around 150, 155.
Yeah, it's nice they got that in for you right just before Thanksgiving. So at least,
it was perfect. I actually went back to my family in Illinois for Thanksgiving. Just like, let's go, get in the car and go. And my family's always really big on Thanksgiving, so there was a ton of food, and it was perfect timing, man.
Awesome. So talking about the timing with the switch to Fight Pass and everything, and that being your first fight, how was LFA's reaction? Obviously, with a finish like that, I would imagine they're keeping you around for a few fights, right?
Yeah, they said they'd, great job, and they'd keep me posted on their schedule for 2020. Honestly, though, I'm not looking to take too many fights with LFA. The way I see going forward is maybe if I do fight for LFA, I want it to be for the 135 vacant title. In a perfect world, I'd possibly hold out till the summer and get on the Contender Series. But that's all the way till summer. And a big part of this game too is kind of staying active and stay in the limelight, and keep finishing people.
Yeah, it's all about the timing for that kind of stuff because, say you don't want to, especially after a big knockout like that, when it's hot, you want to strike. So hopefully they line something up, give you that title shot early next year. I've looked at your record. You had 2 fights last year. You had 1 in 18 and 2 in, or actually only 1 in 17. Has it just been bad luck? Have you been trying to pace stuff? I mean, after having 10 amateur fights, is it just been timing that hasn't worked out to have more bouts, or do you prefer to just kind of take the smart fights?
It's a little bit of both. So timing wise, that fight I took in April of 2018, I won the decision, but I actually blew my knee out in the second round. So and it ended up going towards the whole distance, and I was out for about 7 months, 8 months. Finally rehabbed that. Got back to in late November, around this time last year. Had the fight with Merrill in March, and then after that, just wanted to keep getting better. Like this past year and a half, I've really like developed my game to be completely well rounded, and a big part of that has been like focusing, like I was talking about earlier with like Corey and my buddy Miguel, just working on footwork, striking, evolving that and blending that in with my wrestling. Using your wrestling not to hold someone down, but to evolve it into ground and pound. If they get up, then you can chain that with your striking back to the takedown. There's just a whole blending the whole game to make it sound easy, I guess, but obviously it's not.
I mean, 135 is a pretty active. I mean, if you look at the sport as a whole, not just one promotion, but as a whole, I mean, it shouldn't be too hard for you to stay busy. Is there any 135ers out there that when you're watching, like when you're watching the sport overall that you'd like to get at, or any matchups you can see yourself in the future with? I know you just said you wanted a title shot with LFA, but with options out there, is there any place in particular, if you had your choice, you'd like to go?
Yeah, I got a couple actually. I'm glad you brought that up. So guys over in the UFC, Dana, Sean, Mick, if you want, I got an easy one for you now for the Contender Series. Me versus Jake Childers. Jake Childers is 7-0. He's 2-0 in LFA. We fought as amateurs for the Caged Aggression title. I won a 5-round split decision. I think that would be a great, or if it had to be, if I had to get another one in before a high profile fight, that'd make a great LFA title fight. Rematch for 5 rounds. I know a lot of people have been talking about Adrian Yanez. He won the LFA 78 card main event the week before me. So there's a bit of talk around him being next in line for the title. Those are 2 options I think of right now, out of the top of my head anyway, that I've been eyeing. I know I got offered a couple times. Bellator does this thing, man, where they'll try to like hook people or try to feed people to their guys, their contracted guys. Yeah. I got asked in January to fight Adel Altamimi at 145. I accepted that immediately. Saw him, like, yep, let's do it. Never heard back from the promotion. Ghosted. He's fighting on the main card, fighting some bum on like a 3-fight losing streak. Beats him up real quick. Then it just happened actually 2 days ago. They offered me Gaston Bolanos, 145. Tough fight, like solid kickboxer. But from what I've seen of him, I definitely was. I thought I knew I could beat him. Actually, I take that. I knew using my skills I could beat him and like exploit his weaknesses. So I said I was interested, but then I started, I know my worth. I started asking, is this main card? Is this a single fight contract? What's the pay? Where's this at? Like all these questions. And the answers started getting shorter and shorter, and sure enough, haven't heard anything back. So I don't know. Yeah,
was that initially for the January 25 card, the Cyborg card here in Los Angeles?
No, that was for the 21st in Honolulu.
So just a month out. Yeah, that might not be the best. I mean, your style matches up well with Bolaños, but that's a dangerous fight.
Yeah, very, very, yes. So in that aspect, I think that's what differentiates me from other fighters. Is I see this like there's so much more to it than just fighting in a cage. Obviously, that plays a huge part in where you progress. But knowing all the behind the scenes stuff, fighting Bolanos is obviously a huge risk. You know, I have a 5-1 record, 4-fight win streak. So the reward has to be right. You know, what's the pay for it? What's the contractual terms? Am I going to be guaranteed another fight? Is it going to be at my actual weight class, 135? As soon as they heard any like questioning or that, I'm sure they messaged 5 or 6 other people and just waiting for someone to be like, yeah, I'll take it. Sure, it's Bellator. Sign me.
Yeah, I don't think any. I think all of his fights have been at 145 or even higher, maybe at 155. So I don't think they were going to try to sneak you in probably at featherweight there, like you said.
All in Bellator too.
Yeah, I mean we're fans of Bellator, but obviously Bolaños is one of their poster boys. So they're trying to, like you said, organizations sometimes try to feed their guys.
They actually offered me Baby Slice too last year at 155. See what I mean?
Oh wow!
Like, yeah, that was So I remember I was talking. I blew my knee out. Like 7 months later, my very first practice back, and I get a message like, "Hey, Bellator wants you, 155, Baby Slice." Like in 3 weeks, like I've been off the shot. Like just started my first practice back today. I can't do that. But if I was healthy, I would have taken that fight. I've seen him fight, even if it was at 155. Obviously, the first round, he's going to be a tank. And he's going to be strong as hell. But after that, and sure enough, the guy he fought, it went exactly the way I thought. Did some strong power wrestling the first round, beat his ass a little bit, but then gassed and ended up getting carried off in a stretcher because he couldn't breathe.
Yeah, well, he actually, it's a funny coincidence. I talked to him. I covered his last fight when he was out here. I covered the doubleheader for Bellator in October, and I spoke with him. I mean, it's a crazy coincidence, but he actually wrecked his knee in that fight, and that's why he was out. Yeah. So it's just when you mentioned your knee and I was at the timing and everything, I'm like, wow, it's creepy. It's creepy and almost eerily similar, but the fact that that was a fight that almost happened, I don't know, that's a weird coincidence to me. But you know what? You're talking about all the options you had and the conversations and the messages you're getting. It's just crazy to me to see how, as the sport has grown, that a young fighter like yourself has these opportunities coming at him. And obviously, you had, like you said it before when we started, staying active and keeping eyeballs on you. So one of the things, like when you're asking about contractuals, obviously Bellator is on Paramount/DAZN. When you're looking at your options now, I mean, are you looking at, do these have eyeballs on them, like on Flow or Fight Pass and stuff like that? Is it have your own marketability?
Could you repeat the last 10 seconds? You kind of skipped there.
Oh, sorry.
You broke up when asking about, I think, whether he looks into being on broadcast TV and stuff.
Yeah, you just do you look at how well the offers you're getting, how well the promotion is exposed to new fans, and obviously that's got to count towards your pay. Is that something you take into account now when you're looking ahead?
Yeah, I think so. Now coming off fighting for LFA, if I take a fight from now on, it needs to be at an exposure level, whether it be on a cable network, UFC Fight Pass, whatever, somewhere along those lines. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, kind of piggybacking off what Ed said. I mean, I think it bodes well for your future that, I mean, you're 5-1 as a pro. Obviously, you have the 10 wins as an amateur, which I mentioned to Ed before we came on the air. Is you don't see that a lot. You don't see a lot of 10-0 amateurs. I mean, I know occasionally you see the guys that are bloated and are 20-0, and some of the but if guys are really fighting equal competition, when you start seeing guys that are 10-0 and stuff, that's pretty rarefied air. But to be 5-1 pro and be getting offered names like Bolaños and Baby Slice is as he said, for a younger fighter, getting their career started, that bodes well because they want to put you in there with some names. You're not, you're naming people that everybody across this country who fights or follows MMA knows. So that's pretty cool. Do you think, you mentioned Corey Sandhagen, and he's obviously a little bit in the news today because of the situation with his fight with Frankie Edgar changing and stuff. Being around those guys at that gym, has that helped with your professionalism? Has that helped with your outlook as far as taking these fights or holding back a little bit? Or, I mean, what was has your attitude changed as being at Elevation as opposed to where you were at in Illinois?
Yeah, really, it really has helped like learn how to be a professional. And a big thing of, like I was saying earlier, is learning about how there's so much more to this game than just the fight in itself in the cage, which again is a huge part of it. But understanding the risk reward factor, the exposure. You know, who are you? Are you fighting another UFC caliber guy for what, $500 on a regional card that nobody's going to ever know about other than the people that were there? Just being able to factor all those things in it made a huge difference out here. No, it's just knowing your brand, like investing in your brand, knowing your worth, kind of as a fighter, and just taking everything to it very seriously. Building your brand and having like a name behind you, at least in this day and age with MMA now, is a huge component, man. That's the difference between getting sponsors, getting recognized, getting exposure, and eyeballs. Right now is what the big promotions are looking for. They want eyeballs on the product. What are you going to be able to bring to them? That's a big part. Yeah. To answer your question. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's funny that you're mentioning that, because what I was going to ask next was being around those guys that are obviously they're fighting UFC and stuff like that, and you're talking about negotiating everything. What's the I'm trying to figure out the best way to ask this. How does your training partners, because I feel like it's an unwritten, there's a class you can't take, but you have to figure it out. And obviously, to build your brand, especially with MMA, you have to be active on social media. So what type of advice do you get, or how do you feel about it? Do you think it's ridiculous, or what do the guys like Corey and them say over at Elevation? What type of advice you get over there?
I mean, yeah. I mean, oh man, I used to have probably 2.5 years ago. I think I used to have just a flip phone, regular, non-basic phone, but I've kind of just accepted it, conforming now, and getting on with the game of it. But yeah, I mean, even a lot of people back at the gym still, like, I don't know, like, how to say it. Like Curtis, when I moved to Denver, I lived with Curtis Blades at Neil Magny's house for a bit, and he was always like recording everything we were doing. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? And he's just like, oh, my manager told me I gotta, like, this is how it has to be forever. Like, as long as I'm like a professional athlete. So he kind of really got me on the train of the social media to start. And recently, though, probably the past month now, I've been really like taking it seriously, trying to like really organically grow my following and just promote myself and get awareness out there. And when you do that, from what, like, to other people listening or other like fighters out there that aren't really convinced about it. For instance, I've been trying to grow my Twitter following. I'm trying to grow it. I come across this. I follow you guys. You guys reach out to me. It provides this media opportunity. If I wouldn't have gotten on that social media, like, whatever, try to grow my following, this podcast probably wouldn't be happening right now. And I wouldn't be talking to you guys, and you guys wouldn't be showing clips for whatever you're going to show it on, and people wouldn't see it. It just creates opportunity. As much as you might hate it and might feel narcissistic, if you're an athlete and you're in this sport, you have to do it.
No, I mean, I think that's what the best thing about social media is. There's a lot of garbage out there. A lot of people, it gives a lot of people that we don't really care about their opinion. But when you get situations like this where it allows fans and writers like Ed and other podcast stuff chance to reach out and interact with fighters and I mean, it was just such an easy communication. I've always said that's what social media is all about, the ability to reach out to people and open up doors that 10 years ago would have been impossible. This an interview like this would have never happened 10 years ago in any aspect, unless we lived in the same town as you and we were covering one of your fights. So no, I think that's great. You mentioned Blades and Magny and Sandhagen and all these big names. This backtracks a little bit, but how did you end up at Elevation? Were you invited there? Did you show up on their door one day? Explain exactly how that works. Did you know somebody that was already training there?
All right, so I can give you the backstory behind that. So I'm from Sterling, Illinois, and I was training there with one of my trainers, Joe Laughlin, and we would travel up to Militich. We would train there, and drive up to Militich, which I said was about an hour away. But Austin Hubbard, another UFC fighter. He's from Sterling too. We actually trained together, like at a local gym, like I was saying with Joe, and we would travel up to Militich to train. So Barb Honchek, who was the first Invicta flyweight champion at 125, she was at Militich. We pretty close with everyone there. We had been training there for about a year and a half, now 2 years, and Barb is like best friends with Kat Zingano. Kat Zingano was training at Elevation in Denver, Colorado. Barb and her were talking like, "Hey, you should have some guys like come out, like train this or that." So she mentioned it. She was pretty good friends with our trainer Joe. She mentioned Joe said that Joe's talked to us. Heck, hey, you guys, said you guys should come check it out. Like get some tickets, stay out there for. So booked a hotel, got some cheap flights for a week out there. Went to the Muscle Farm facility and was like, this is the place. So we were out there for a week. I got Neil Magny's number. He told me he has a fighter house that he like rents out to fighters. Saved that number. Went back home. Me and Austin were both working at a warehouse, Walmart distribution center warehouse. He said, "Fuck it, I'll try it," and like put in for a transfer when he got back. Sure enough, got a call like 2 days later. It was like, "You're accepted. You're going to Denver in like 2 weeks. Get your shit ready." So he was out there, and it was about 10 months later I moved out there, and me and Austin were living at Neil Magny's fighter house.
Wow, that's a cool story.
Yeah.
How did the Elevation go for a country boy out there?
Oh my God, dude. It's horrible. You just take a deep breath trying to get some oxygen, you get nothing back, and meanwhile there's a guy just dancing around you, popping, punching you, and just dude, it was horrible. Yeah, it took a solid at least 2 months, I think, to really get acclimated, or at least to like start to deal with it. It takes, I think, longer than that though to actually be like naturalized to it. Now it's like I don't really feel it anymore. I feel when I go other places though, like the excess oxygen, I guess you'd call it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, it sucked, man. I went there. I think my first practice was Thursday, pretty intense, like grappling wrestling class.
Oh.
And man, yeah, wrestling, grappling, no oxygen. First day in, it was broken quick, man.
So like I do jiu-jitsu and I actually have respiratory issues. So when the weather changes, just you talking about that, I have asthma too. So just you talking about that, I almost felt an asthma attack coming on.
Yeah,
Let's
be what it's like.
Yeah, but I mean, obviously, it's obviously made you a more explosive, stronger fighter. So whatever you're doing, you got to keep doing it. And I just followed you actually before we started recording this. So. On Twitter, so yeah, definitely, man. That's it looks like it's working out for you. I feel stupid because it just hit me why they call it Elevation now with that story you told. I'm like, oh, duh, yeah.
He's from New Jersey. He's from Jersey. Don't blame him. But anyways, everybody, fans, again, Justin Wetzell, 5-1 pro, 10-0 amateur. Justin, you want to throw out your speaking of social media, you want to throw out your handles and any way people can contact you or follow you?
Yeah, definitely. Jay Wetzell, Wetzell MMA. That's my handle for both Instagram and Twitter. Follow me on there. Watch my journey, man.
We look forward to it. Again, glad to get a chance to meet you and connect this week and get you on the show so quickly. And congratulations again on your last win. Big show, big win, great knockout, big highlights. So I know Ed and I both look forward to following your career and helping promote you as much as we can lend a hand. So again, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. Let me know when you guys want to do it again sometime.
Awesome,
Absolutely.
man.
Thank you.
Have a good holiday if we don't talk before then.
Will do. See you, man.
All right. Good night.